morning, everybody. This is Think and Grow Rich, the MasterMind group. We are so here and we're so grateful that you're here. Thank you for being here. And in the comments, just let the world know that you are here. You're ready to be part of this mastermind and you're ready to become somebody who you really, really want to be. We're discussing the process of faith, which is the second principle within Think and Grow Rich. And I'm very excited to be talking about this with you. I will let you know that today is just Anne and I. Well, I say just. I mean, it's Anne and me together. The men needed to take both of them were out speaking and sharing their mission with the world. So it's the two of us to share our mission and our vision that you are in a mastermind group and that you read Think and Grow Rich. So I just wanted to share something about Think and Grow Rich and faith because that's what we're going to be talking about today. He writes, faith is a state of mind which may be induced by autosuggestion. He writes, faith is the external elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. And he writes several statements that are so important to understand about faith and to set us up for today's discussion with our guest that you are going to love. And you're going to really love Kendy Ward. So he writes, the foregoing sentence is worth reading a second time and a third and a fourth. It's worth reading aloud. Faith is the starting point of all accumulation of riches. Faith is the basis of all miracles and all mysteries, which cannot be analyzed by the rule of science. Faith is the only known antidote for failure. Faith is the element, the chemical, when mixed with prayer, gives one direct communication with infinite intelligence. Faith is the element which transforms the ordinary vibration of thought created by finite human mind into its spiritual equivalent. Faith is the only agency which the cosmic force of the infinite intelligence can be harnessed and used by humanity. Every one of the foregoing statements is capable of proof. And I certainly know that for myself, that faith has been the most transformative process for myself, first desire, and all the other 13 principles. But faith also brought me into a space to be with a magnificent woman who has been both my inspirer, dear friend for decades, my coach sometimes, my friend always. Let me bring in Anne McNeil to talk to us about her perspective of faith. Hey, Anne.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's a phenomenal opportunity to share the face of faith in our guest today. And our guest, I think, exudes what faith really looks like in everyday action, and thought, action, and deed, actually. And you've given us, Joaquin, some of the thoughts espoused by Napoleon Hill about faith. And I think it's going to be very exciting to get into this chapter where we talk about how you develop faith. You know, Napoleon Hill talked about there are many ways, but the power of the affirmation, the autosuggestion, and what you choose to constantly repeat to yourself. It is easy to do and develop, but it's also, Pekin, and for all of us, it's very easy not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about, and I'll just share a little bit what he says, that the method by which you can develop faith where it does not already exist is extremely difficult to describe. And he goes on to talk about describing it to someone that's blind in terms of trying to determine what differentiations for color. But repetition of the affirmations to your subconscious mind is actually how we develop faith. And so I'm excited to get started with this conversation, Joaquin. So if we can go ahead and get it started.
I'm so glad that you brought up about the power of the affirmation and faith. And I'm excited to bring in Kendra. One of the things that I recognized it yesterday, was somebody was interviewing me and asked me about my history. And it was interesting to hear yourself change, because through faith and affirmations,
Yes.
how I saw my history was totally different than how I would have found my history a few years ago. And I'm really excited to bring Kendi Hall Ward in. So let me tell everybody about Kendi. Kendi, she's won and garnered recognition as BET's First Time Writers Competition, which she won with her first story. She's been an award winning Toastmaster. She's won been a speaker. She speaks all over Florida and the Bahamas. She does a lot of work as an empowerment, self improvement, and faith minister to people. She's also an extreme introvert who is an operational guru. Let me tell you why I know that. She happens to work with somebody that I know that has a million ideas. And what Kendi does is take those ideas, implement them, and make them into gold on the other side. That's why she's wearing gold. She's the implementer of the ideas. And I was telling Kendi a little bit earlier, the kind of books that she writes filled my soul when I was a young woman. And she writes beautiful God based romance novels. And so you want to go and find Kendi Hall on Amazon.com. We'll put that into the comments. I and Kendi, you are going to teach me about how to do masterminds with families, because it's one of the things that you have done. So welcome to the show. So happy that you're here, and yet you're wearing colors that I love. So how did you find the book Think and Grow Rich?
Well, thank you, Peggy, for that question. Good morning. Good morning, Anne. Good morning, everybody who's watching. So, how I found Think and Grow Rich is a really interesting story. I was bamboozled into reading it by my mother. When I was about 15, 14 or 15, I was a freshman in high school in the ninth grade. My mother brought home from work some photocopy pages. It was just a few pages, and she was like, "Oh, read this story." And it was a story from Think and Grow Rich, but I didn't know that. And every day she would bring home copies of pages and she would say, "Oh, read this one." And she just continued bringing copies to me until I completed the whole book, because I believe that she knew if she brought to me this thick book, that I would have been like, I'm not reading that. That is not fiction. And so she kind of tricked me into reading it, just bringing a few copies to me every day until I got through the entire book, which benefited me greatly in my future, not just because I was exposed to Think and Grow Rich and the mastermind principles at a young age, but also when I went for my job interview uh, with somebody that's on this live right now. So I went, I'd been unemployed for like 18 months after I graduated from college. I had a couple of jobs, but nothing that I wanted to pursue a career in. And so I'd been out of work for about 18 months. And a friend of mine at church told me that her mother was looking for help in her office. And so I called her mother, and her mother said to come in at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, who does that? At the time, I didn't have a car. I didn't live close. It was like 2 or 3 bus rides to get to the office. So I'd get up extra early to get there, and got there at 7, and she was not there and nobody was there. The door was locked. Anyway, so fast forward to the interview. The first question that she asked me was if I read, and I was like, yes, I'm actually an avid reader. And then she asked me if I had read Think and Grow Rich. And I said, yes, I read it when I was in high school. And she hired me on the spot. And I've actually been there ever since. So that's my Think and Grow Rich story.
so, So I love two things that you just said. One is I only wish I knew your mom to have given me the sneaky way of introducing Think and Grow Rich through the little pages. That's fantastic. And two is I love that you were there at 7 o'clock and she wasn't. So for those of you that didn't get it, Kendy works with Ann McNeil, and she is the backbone of all the companies that Ann has been, and she's been with Ann for over 19 years. So I'm curious about how you thought about the family mastermind based on how did you go from reading the book, finding yourself working with Ann, and then coming up with the idea of I need to do a family mastermind, and tell me who's in your mastermind.
That's a great question. I love it. I'm excited to answer it too. So as I started to get involved in mastermind, voluntarily, involuntarily, if you work with Ann, you know what I mean. So as I began to, get into it and I began to see results in my personal life, because of the goals that I was setting, in the categories back when we started, it wasn't 10, I think it was 8 categories when I started with Mastermind, but one was family. And so once I started to see results and growth in my life, I said, hey, I want my family to be involved in this. So I just put as a family goal, family mastermind with my family. I didn't put like family mastermind group, just mastermind with my family. And so I kept presenting it to them. And we had already been informally masterminding because we know how to mastermind a vacation. That's one thing we know how to mastermind. It's a vacation. So we had already been meeting and planning, but only vacations. And so I told him it's the same thing, but it's just in more areas and this will be great. And no, for years, no. And then we have a dispute about this, but I believe it was like 20. I'm not going to say the year, they're going to get on me, but I'm going to say like around 2010-ish. So finally, the no became a yes. I think they just got tired of me. And so in my family mastermind group, as my parents, my mom and my dad, my brother, and my sister, it started off with. And the amazing thing about it, so it's just the 5 of us, and we began masterminding in 5 categories for the family. We all individually mastermind in all 10 areas, but as a family, we have family goals in 5 areas. We have spiritual goals, we have financial goals, we have business goals, of course, we have recreational goals, and we have civic goals as a family. And the other amazing thing is when my sister got married and my brother got married, one of my, I don't want to say fears, but one of the questions that I had was, would their spouses be able to be integrated into our mastermind group? And amazingly, also my brother-in-law, he started to mastermind. My sister-in-law started to mastermind. So now our in-law, well, my in-laws, our in-laws are involved in the mastermind group also, and the children are involved in the mastermind group also. So the entire family is in the mastermind group.
And the children did not exist when you started.
No. And so that was one of my dad's family goals. Like he wanted grandchildren. He wanted us to be married and have grandchildren. And so now, how many is 6? 6 of them now.
Wow. So how often do you all meet as a family mastermind?
So we meet every week. We meet weekly on Sundays, and this is through moves. And my sister lived in Africa for a time. And so way before, Zoom became popular, we had to figure out, because we're all in different places in the world, we had to figure out ways to be able to be consistent in our meetings. So we were meeting on Google Chat, I think it was called back then, and we were meeting on Skype, before it became popular, but we meet weekly.
That's fantastic. So go ahead, Ann. You can ask a question because I could go.
I just want to interject that before we go too far, we do want to do the 13 steps. So those of our guests who are listening for the first time know that we're talking about faith, but it's not the only principle. There are others. So if we can just take a commercial break, I know it's so exciting talking with Miss Ward, but if we can take a commercial break and share the 13 steps.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
I'm still in awe of the family masterminds. I really am. And how you've created it. And it was very interesting during the commercial. My daughter just texted me and said, "So what are you doing right now?" And I said, "I'm listening to Family Masterminds. You should too." And I just sent it to her. So thank you so much, because it's been a secret desire in me. And so let's talk about your desire, your own burning desire. What, because a burning desire leads to faith and leads to, well, just as everybody has seen. I'm just curious, you showed up for this interview. Clearly you had the desire for the job, but then what has else been a desire that faith has played a role into?
So definitely the burning desire that I had was always to be an author. From a young age, I've always written. I mean, from I learned how to write, I've been telling stories. And so I think that it was in the back of my head that it was something that I wanted to do, that I knew that I had a gift for. But I'm originally from the Bahamas, and I didn't know any authors from the Bahamas. I didn't know anybody that looked like me, sound like me, that written a book. And so I'll share this. I don't know if I shared this with Anne before, but so anyway, so once I came to the United States and I started to get exposed to authors of color, and I was like, oh, there are Black women authors. And I started to buy their books and read their books, and I saw characters that look like me, that sound like me. And so for me, that broadened the reality of what I could accomplish. And that really started the burning desire. But when I started to go to mastermind meetings with Anne, I saw the women in the books that I was reading, that they weren't just characters, they were real people. Because I would see I would read about professional women who were lawyers and doctors and accountants, and where I came from, I didn't know anybody like that. All the people I knew worked, in a hotel or in a bank or taught school. I didn't see professional women. And so for me, that was impossible. But when I started to be around Anne, I saw, those professional women that I was reading about, that they were real people, and that could be aspirational for me also in writing. And so I had originally been published in 2001 when I was still in college. I won a contest with BET Books, BET Black Entertainment Television. I won a contest, and they published a story for me. And I was offered a 3-book deal, but couldn't close on the deal just because my focus in writing had shifted from writing I'm gonna say secular romance into Christian romance and Christian fiction, which BET was in publishing at that time. And so, but I still wanted to write because I knew that this was a gift. I knew that this is what God had for me to do because of a prayer, and that goes back to desire. When I saw the contest that BET was having, I prayed a simple prayer. I said, God, if this is something that you want me to do with my life, I said, I don't have to come first. I said, I can be a runner-up. I can be a runner-up, and that will be a sign to me that writing is something that you want me to do. And so the Bible says, ask and it will be given, right? Seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open. So I asked and it was given. So I got a call from BET, and they were like, hey, you were a runner-up. So that's exactly what I asked for. But God, in his divineness, he does exceedingly abundantly more than we can ask, think, hope, or imagine. And they said, but we couldn't really choose a real winner, so we're going to publish the four runner-ups. So my book was published anyways, even though I didn't win. I was a runner-up. So that was like a sign on top of a sign. So once I started to mastermind, I still had the desire to write, but now I just had to figure out a different channel and avenue to write. So self-publishing is the avenue that I took to write, because I knew that I had the desire. I knew that I had the gift. I had the confirmation from God, and that I knew that this was something that I could do, that I was called to do. So I did it.
I love this. So now okay, now I'm just going to be on you right here. So now we have that desire. You did it, you have it, you know it. What is the desire now?
Now the desire is really to connect more people with my writing and to minister through the writing, to tell about, God through writing in, through stories, not, sounding preachy. So the
So I love
desire
the
is
very
really to connect people.
So I'm just need to ask a question because I know Anne's going to know that I'm kind of going with you on this right over here because I love how direct you were and clear you were when you asked, if show me a sign, if I win this, I know this is where I'm going to go. You were really clear. So now what's your clarity statement? God, if this is my secret sauce, and I'm going to tell you why, Kendi, is that we have a lot of people watching this show, a lot of people that are connected in ways that none of us can ever imagine. So I'm being called to ask you, what's the burning desire now?
I said the burning desire is to connect people with the message.
So do you want to be a best-selling author for this book? Do you want your book to be made into a movie that would touch lives? Would you like your book to be like, and what's the name of that story? The Shack, that he wrote the book and it was a story of his son, and then became a bestseller and a movie. Is that where we're going?
I can say that every book that I write, I want it to become a movie. Like I cast it in my head, and I do want, those stories to be told, those diverse stories to be told. So yes.
So yes, what?
Yes, I'd like my books, not just book, but books to become movies.
All right. So I'm just going to let you know that Anne's going to be on you to make sure that your burning desire is heard by the universe with the same faith. So let's talk about faith, about this for you. And this is great. And everybody that's watching, if you would go to Amazon, just write Kendy Hall, you'll see all of her books.
Kendy Ward.
Why do I keep on calling you Kendy
I
Hall?
don't know. You're trying to marry me to somebody named Hall, but okay.
I don't know, maybe, or maybe it's a Hall that wants to be married to you.
Speak those things. Speak those things as if they were.
Maybe it's opening the hallway for you, all your books. So, and what questions do you have for Kendy Ward about faith and desire and this whole combination of masterminding?
Well, let's thank all of your loving people, especially your family, Kendy, that's chiming in the chat. So, begin Imelda, Dr. Ruben, we have a Facebook user, Doretha. You all know who you are. Teresa, Miss Davis, Cut Crazy, Monique Strong, Richer Life. So many of you are chiming in. Laverne Dorsey, Colette Coleman. We want to thank you for participating. Diane Portier. What we're going to do to answer Begin's question is we're going to ask all of you, what questions do you have for Ms. Ward? And if you would put those in the chat. What I'd like to ask you, Kendy, if you would share, and I know you are a student of the philosophy. And like I said, when we were introducing you, you live it every day. Can you give us an example of how you use faith, past tense, how you have used faith to overcome a major struggle or challenge in your life or your business?
So when we were talking earlier about auto-suggestion, right? And changing the way that you think from the negative to the positive and positive thoughts. And my favorite book says that faith comes by hearing, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have that affirmation that we should say every day, but one realization is to say it out loud. because faith comes by hearing, right? And once you hear it and it's repeated over and over again, like the book says, that auto suggestion that begins to change the way that you think and your belief system. So, like I said earlier, like I didn't see myself, as the possibility of being a professional woman or even being comfortable with that because I hadn't seen it before. But once I started to surround myself with it, an example in the books, I gave a negative example. If you're around crime for a long time, first, you're like, I'm not down with that. But the longer you're around it, the more accepting you are of it until eventually you become a criminal, right? So it's the same thing on the other side of it, the positive side, that at first I was like, okay, all of these professional, successful Black women, that's for them. That's not, that's not for me. I didn't see myself like that. But the more I was around it, the more I could see myself being that, right? And accepting that, and also just putting it in my affirmation and repeating it daily until, Michelle Obama wrote the book, Becoming, that we're constantly becoming and evolving and maturing. The Bible says we go from glory to glory. So to answer your question of how has helped me, faith has helped me overcome, is by faith comes by hearing, those affirmations of who God says that I am and repeating them to myself daily until I'm becoming who God has called me to be. And so like Peggy said, when you look back, when you look like, oh my goodness, I have stories. But when I look back to who I used to be, right? And not that I was a bad person or anything like that, but who I used to be as far as self-confidence, and that's something else that's in the book, as far as self-confidence in the way that I viewed myself and where I am now, I'm like, thank God for growth, for maturity, for change, for transformation in my thoughts and in my mind, of how I view myself and definitely how I view others in the world around me.
And there is a relationship between how we view ourselves and how we view others. And so that's another conversation for another program. But your sister, Mr. Denise Potier, asked this question. She says, what would you say was your greatest move?
My greatest move. Okay, so I don't know if she meant like literal move or, like move in steps, but I would say one of my greatest moves is really this move here to South Florida and going to faith and confidently knowing, the direction and the path that you're on. And so, like I said, I moved here and I didn't have a job for a year and a half. And actually, when I got the call, well, it was the email from Danelle. I was actually in the Bahamas. But I knew that I was supposed to be here in Miami. I knew. So when I got that email, I knew that it was God. And it was because of faith, of me knowing where I was supposed to be. And so I got that email from Danelle about a job opportunity, but I'm in the Bahamas and I'm broke because I don't have a job. And I was like, how am I going to get back to Miami? I need money. Faith, I need money. Repeating just over and over, like, how am I going to get it? I had a friend come to my house and gave me $100. Another friend came and gave me $100. So now I have $200, which is enough for a one-way ticket to the Bahamas. But again, God does exceedingly from the Bahamas. Yes, from getting to where I'm supposed to be, from the Bahamas. But again, God does exceedingly abundantly. Then my mom comes to me and she asks me, well, why do you want to be, there? You don't have any family, all this stuff. And so I said, because God said. And so she bought me the ticket. And I had $200 cash to come back with to live on until I started my job. So I think that was the greatest move.
So I want you to know, Kendy, that I'm so glad that you took that greatest move. And while you were speaking, I was moved to write this for you. Kendy Ward, author, has just signed a multi-movie deal. Her blockbuster movies touch women's lives worldwide. Her partner, Hall, has been a supporter of her movies and her books.
I love it.
Just saying
I love it.
that the universe is supplying you with exactly the vision of where you're going next, because I haven't even read your books, but I just feel your books. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, talking about going next, we'll go next to Laverne Dorsey's question. She asked, what was your pivotal experience that caused focusing in your direction? Caused focusing in your direction, your aha moment.
So I think one of the aha moments was the one that I just mentioned. And hey, I know that I am not supposed to be, in the Bahamas. I'm supposed to be here. And that has been a continuing trend, throughout my time here, because there have been other times when it's like, okay, that's not going to work. What are you going to do? Are you going to move? And another time, I was actually going to move back home to the Bahamas, and I had already bought the ticket. This was in 2009, I think. I think it was 2009. Bought the ticket. That's not working. I'm going to move home. Bought my ticket. And God woke me up and gave me a scripture, Jeremiah 42. I don't know what Jeremiah 42 says. I don't know. I'm like, what's that like? And so I get up, I get the Bible, I turn to Jeremiah 42, and it's the story of the children of Israel. And they went to the prophet Jeremiah for Jeremiah to ask God a question about them going back to Egypt. Should they go back to Egypt? Mm-hmm. And the prophet went to God, and God said, if you go back to Egypt, you will surely die. I said, I don't need to read not one more word. I don't need to read another word in this passage. I'm good. I'm going to stay here. So that was an aha that cemented that you are where you are supposed to be, and I will sustain you.
Let me just connect something for all of us that we're hearing from Kendy and all of our guests. Napoleon Hill shares with us that desire, it is the desire that is the beginning of all achievement. But you need the faith that is connected to that autosuggestion and the repetition of the desire, not needing to know how you're going to get to the destination. And Kendy and I do work together, and 5 businesses we work on. And it is the desire to serve others that has generated all of these platforms and these vehicles that allow us. We don't know how, we don't know who, we just know that there is a desire. And like she said about me with all of these ideas, all of them are not going to work. And I want to just encourage everybody that's listening. What is it that you desire? Even though we're talking about the faith principle and we're talking about the repetition of your prayer, that's auto-suggestion. Because Kendy, when you said faith coming by hearing, I was leaning in to hear you continue. It says also hearing. Yes. But see, oftentimes we think that the word is only the word of God. It is the words also. And the repetition of your prayer, the repetition of your affirmation, the repetition of your subconscious mind, programming, whatever that is, the repetition of your self-confidence formula. But it all stems back to whoever you are that's listening, live or in the future, it all stems back to your desire. Kendy sharing her desire was to write. God is giving her a platform and a vehicle by which to do that. But she's writing to share the word of God. Go ahead.
Can I just jump in right there?
Sure.
Because you're talking about desire. If you don't have a desire, you don't have any basis for faith. You have nothing to have faith for if you don't have a desire. So you have to have a desire. The scripture says faith is the substance of things hoped for. That hope is that desire.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have that, then you don't need faith for anything.
So
Absolutely. Go ahead,
I
Vicky.
want to jump in here for a minute because Anne brought it up, and Kendra, you're bringing it up, and that is for those of you, I read from this book, it is on the self-confidence formula, and I want to ask you a question because he writes, "I'll never stop pursuing until I have developed sufficient self-confidence for its attainment."
Mhm.
So that statement of developing sufficient self-confidence for its attainment, obviously you had the confidence to stay, you had the confidence to start doing your writing, you knew that was writing. What is it you are working on now, developing your self-confidence for its attainment
Yes.
of your next steps?
Yes, I've been wrestling, as we say where I'm from, wrestling. Been wrestling with something that I don't have confidence in. Like I write and it Anne says it's my book business, but I don't want to see it like a business. Like I'm not entrepreneurial, and I don't consider myself an entrepreneur. And so I've been wrestling with that. I now feeling led to really think about it as a business, and that's just one part of the business. It can branch out into other areas. So I've been wrestling with that and trying to build my self-confidence in that area to take that entrepreneurial step and really consider it like this is a business. This isn't just something that I write on the side, you know.
Well, since you're signing multi-movie deals,
Yes.
and since you're growing that, and this partner Hall keeps on showing up, you definitely have a business of your message, and you and both. And I love how both of you say, and I wanted to ask about this. Both of you have used the same language of, I want to reach as many people as I possibly can. I want to make a difference. Now, Anne says, I want to make a difference, and she builds 5 different companies to make a difference. You're saying, I want to make a difference, but the struggle of, am I running a business to make a difference? Like, and then we read the book whose title is, right?
Think and Grow Rich.
So the clarity for me is making a difference and being rich are both in the same alignment.
Yes.
I'm loving you so much. I can't begin to tell you how I'm loving you. Before you go, now you've been to the International Masterminders Association annual meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I hosted, as Ann said, I hosted it last year in 2021.
And so I know there's a difference between hosting and there's a difference between being. Can you share what that meeting has meant to you and your family and all that you've become?
So I will say I mentioned it a little bit earlier when I said going to these meetings with Ann. They were the annual meetings, and back then, it would be at somebody's home. It would be at Ann's home or Miss Izzy's home or Mia's home or Yolanda English's home. It'll be at somebody's home, and that's when I got exposed to, like I said, like, hey, these people I'm reading about are real. These successful Black women, they're real people. And so that's in the beginning. That's what it's for. And as we've grown as an organization and as a group, and now we're in a hotel. For me, it's always the benefit is always hearing the stories that are shared and the impact of Mastermind in groups' lives and individual lives. So that's the benefit for me, and even the best practices, because we all have challenges. We're a group, we're a family, we have challenges in our group. But hearing other people, and how they mastermind and how they do stuff, and that helps us to overcome some of the challenges that we have. But the most beneficial thing for me is connecting with people. Obviously, I never used to like people, but I'm starting to like people more. People getting to be a people person, but connecting with people and hearing their stories and how Mastermind has helped them get from who they used to be to becoming who they're supposed to be. And
Ooh,
at the Mastermind annual meeting, we get to do that, especially at the table when we get to share, our goals and our accomplishments for the previous year and for the upcoming year. So that's basically the format of the meeting.
You just said such deep words. And for everybody listening, just plan on coming in January to the International Masterminders Association annual meeting. Be prepared for creating a book of where have you been, where are you going, what's your dreams, what's your visions, and do the internal assessment. And even if you do all that work, even if you just sign up. And I'm going to tell you, as a person who, because of COVID, I couldn't attend, my process made a huge difference in analyzing and assessing who I am, where I'm going, how I've changed, and the real awareness. So when you have a chance, go to International Masterminders, register today for January. Just put it on now. It's 1 year from now, but once you made a commitment, it's a commitment, and you are there. No, mind, body, and soul. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Anne, can you talk a little bit about the International Masterminders beta group?
Sure, sure. I just want to take a moment though, and just go back to something that Kendy said, and it reminded me, Kendy, when you talked about your wrestling. I just want to just go back to that for one moment, and then we'll talk about the beta test, and then we'll put up the JPEG for the annual meeting details to make sure that everybody register. Because every Saturday, I'm going to say this over and over again, this is a early bird special investment. So then when it goes up, what happens? Can we get that other price? No. So I want to say that first. But Kendy, you said something that prompted something for me, I think from Mariam Williamson, when she talked about our deepest fear.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talked about wrestling, her quote came up for me. And so I just want to just remind you, and for all of us, because we're all going through this faith walk, this faith journey, things that we've prayed about. But are we sitting in silence and in meditation long enough to hear? Like Kendy talked about having that wake up call when she was led to read a scripture that she didn't know. But once she read it, she got her answer. But oftentimes we're so busy. But her quote, I think, reminds us that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we really, I'd like to suggest, are more powerful beyond measure. And Kendy, it is your light, not your darkness, that most frightens you. I'd like to think for all of us, it is our light. It is each of your light. And so as we continue to ask ourselves this question, who am I? Who are you? To be brilliant. And you are gorgeous, by the way, talented and fabulous. Who are you? Actually, I think for all of us, who are you not to be? And that's really what I'd like to and challenge by faith for us to think about. Who are you not to be to live your dream? And surround yourself with individuals. Because as a child of God, our playing small does not serve you, and it does not serve the rest of us. And as I was sitting and listening to you talking, Kendy, I am reminded just simply of, every idea that God has given us. If we took just one, and worked on it. And I am so thankful when you think about the lives that you and I touch every day because of the idea to start MCO construction and services, because of the idea to start MCO consulting to help our private and public sector firms who work on private and public sector land to reach outreach, monitoring, and compliance for the DE&I community. When I think about the idea of starting Constructive Speaking to share God's gift through me, to me, through me, to the world. And when I think about this phenomenal platform we're on right now, the International Mastermind Association, and I think about how Napoleon Hill talks about a 20-year journey.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of us, it's been 40, 50, almost 50 years on this journey. And then the National Association of Black Women in Construction, when I think about who am I to play small? Who are you to play small? And Pekin, the same thing for you and all of us that's listening. Who are we to play small? We don't have to have all the answers. Just take one idea and act by faith on one thing at a time. And so I just didn't want to leave that before talking about something else and talking about something else. I think that sometimes we can just slow down long enough to listen. And by lowly listening, Emerson says, we can hear. Yes, Pekin.
I'm loving what you said, because I wrote a note this week that I wanted to bring up. I was listening to Esther Hicks talking, and one of the things that she said was, and I've really been pondering it, how is the way I set things up? So how did I set up? So everything that we receive, everything that we have, everything that we experience, we set it up by how we're thinking. We set it up by the emotional state that we bring to it. We're the ones that have set it up. So if things aren't working out the way that we imagined, what were you imagining? Because if you were imagining it to work with ease and flow and grace, and you fostered it with the faith, then the outcome would be different. However, if you've been setting it up with, I can't do it, I want to be a superstar, and what would happen to my family, and so, and if I'm a superstar, then everybody would not like me. And now I'm setting it up to not happen, because I've added all these other dimensions to my faith in my, just as you were saying, if you think of yourself as, I'm a star, I'm awesome, but you set it up in your emotional state as though it's not all going to work out, or that you are not the divinely blessed human that you are, to make sure that if you have that thought, that means it's done, and you better believe that it's done. But if you intercede and put in your fears, and if you intercede and you put your nervousness, if you intercede and you say, well, I don't know how, well, one of the things that I think that this has opened up, and you're talking right now, and Kendra talking, is the way I set it up. The new word that I've been recognizing even more and more is resourcefulness. Mm-hmm. So I'm Kendy, and I'm saying I have just sold a multi-movie deal. I am resourceful. I will figure it out. Mm-hmm. It will show up for me. I know when the time is right. I know how it's doing, as opposed to say, I'm Kendy and I want a multi-movie deal. I don't have a freaking clue how I'm going to do it. I don't know anybody in the movie industry. I don't know what's going to go on. It's like a nice thing, but really, am I worth it? Am I, that shift? And that's when we talk in faith of that self-confidence formula, and that step number 4 of investing in our self-confidence to be, it aligns with exactly what you're saying, Anne, about who are we not to be this person, but then also the clarification, how are we setting ourselves up? And you say it time and time and time again, let the book read you. And every single line of Think and Grow Rich has a message for you if you do 2 things. 1, you read it, and 2, you read it aloud. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes that's where you wake up.
Big difference. Okay, so I'll go ahead. Sorry, I'll go ahead and wrap up with the beta test. For those of you that are in a mastermind group and are interested in forming a mastermind group, we do have a beta test that's going on. You can go to internationalmasterminders.com /group mastermind to get the details and to register. We will be meeting actually this coming Tuesday. I don't have the date, I apologize, but we will be meeting Tuesday once a month on the second Tuesday, even though this Tuesday is the third. But I want to also encourage all of you, consider getting individuals of like mind and like spirited together, form a mastermind group of accountability for your desire achievement. That's one. And then lastly, join us in Boca Raton at the Embassy Suites on January 6th and 7th, 2023. You can register at internationalmasterminders.com. And Brittany, if you would put up the JPEG for a moment, they can see that for those who will be listening and watching in the future. This will allow you an opportunity. Every time we come on, you hear people talk about the annual meeting. So that annual meeting is a place for you to come and be accountable for whatever it is you said you desired in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 10 areas of your life. It's up to you. It can be one if that's okay for you. And then I'll wrap up and close, Begin, with just connect with me. You can just connect with me, but only if you're interested in having a better quality of life and clarity. And I keep saying that because I'm growing in my self-confidence also, and the realization that I am not for everybody. I'm not the coach or consultant for everybody. And so if you're looking to grow your self-confidence and have greater clarity in your highest income producing areas of your business and your life, you can connect with me at annmcneil.com/coaching and join us in our clarity mastermind, but only if you are interested in growing that area of your life. Back to you, Begin.
So thank you so much, everybody. I'm so glad that you're here. Next week, we're having Lucinda Monroe as our guest. Also, I want to let you all know that if you are currently in a mastermind and you're a passionate student of Think and Grow Rich, and you want to be part of one of our guests that we bring on once a week, we would love to hear from you. The best way to reach out so that you can be a guest on our program is to go to I am blog TAK. I am blog at gmail.com. I am blog TAK at gmail.com. If you're interested in being a guest, we would love to have you. We love being with people who are thinking grow rich and are in masterminds, so we could talk about masterminds. Thank you so much for being here. For our Kendy Ward, I want to let you know, buy her book. Go to amazon.com, look for Kendy Ward. I'm loving this whole thing. Go to Kendy Ward and also go to kendyward.com because she's fantastic and a mover and shaker, and you're somebody that you really want to know. If you have a movie deal, please make sure you reached out to her because she's ready, vibrating at a high level to receive those movie deals. My name is Pegine, Pegine. You can always find me at pegine.com. Go to Power Women Worldwide, and if you want to be inspired and motivated on a daily basis, sign up at pegine.club for my daily motivational message that wakes you up and makes you ready for the day. To everybody here, to all who are watching, for all of our guests that have been with us, subscribe. Amelia Wallace, Facebook user, Raquel, thank you so much. Doretha, of course, always being there. Teresa, Goldcraft, Casey with Miss All Purpose. So glad to enrich your life. Thank you also being Laverna, Colette. Oh my gosh, the Moorish Temple, Amen of JSW, Quincy Ward, Denise Poitier. Wyman, I'm so glad that you're here. To all of you, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up in yourself. Bye.
Wait, Begin. Kendy.
Yes.
We're going to wrap up with you telling people how they can reach you.
Oh, I thought Begin already did that, but you can reach me on my website, www.kendyward.com, to connect with me, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Pekin. Thank you, Kendy.
Bye, everybody. Love you, Kendy. Love you, and take care. Mwah.
Thanks.